So today, I'll be moving on to class number 13, which is named Science, the Successful Idol. So last time we talked about nature, the beautiful idol. Now we talk about the successful idol, and I'll explain why we call it successful. So, where are we? We are learning now the possible idols that God allowed to exist when he said this miraculous verse. Elohim said, let us make an Adam in our form and our image. We can talk a whole year about this verse. And we said that by the fact that he spoke in plural, descending from dictatorship, so to speak, to become a king who consults, a democratic king. So by definition, he allows opposition to exist. That's the nature of democracy, democratic king. And here, opposition means idolatry. So that's another way to present the idea that by consulting, rather than by dictating, Elohim open up, by speaking in plural, Elohim open up the possibility of idols to exist. So mankind is born, the same verse that describe the mankind, the making of mankind, is the same verse that open up idolatry. So here the Torah intertwined or coupled or intertwined the creation of mankind with the possibility of idolatry. That's what we are talking. So Elohim, so to speak, when he built Adam as a dummy in the ground, let's say, he consulted many entities to make Adam layers, one by one, by different consultation. And each layer that he consulted with is a gift to Adam, but on the other hand, it can serve as a possible idol because God consulted it. So it empowers, by consultation, empowers this entity in our mind. So last time we talked about the first consultation with the 6 days. So all the consultations were done with entities mentioned in chapter 1. So last time we talked about God making Adam bodies, or body, from consulting nature 6 days, and telling each day, let us together make Adam. So Adam is built from all the 6 days in nature. And we see it in the embryo as it evolved from one cell to fish, to bird, and so on. Each of us repeat the entire evolution in the womb. And that's exactly what Moses is saying here. He consulted with 6 days and made Adam. At the same time, this consultation rendered nature so powerful, magic in our mind. So humanity has been trapped to worship nature, be fascinated by nature, and worship it, and forgetting Elohim, who made nature. So it was a gift by Elohim making an Adam integral part of nature. We empathize with everything in nature. We are fascinated by its beauty and power. And on the other hand, we can be fascinated so much that we can forget Elohim, who created nature. And last time we discussed, it really happened. Adam in history turned to items in 6 days, born with him. like holy cow and serpent and snake on the sixth day, and created and worship them. And then he turned, as he got smarter in history, he turned deeper in nature and worship things on the sixth day, on the fifth day. Like what? Like fish, bird, crocodile. You see it in Egyptian mythology. They are depicted, the gods are depicted as fish, bird, crocodile. Then it turned deeper into nature, into fourth day, worshiping the luminaries, as the Babylonian did, the stars and the moon, and so forth. So men in history actually stumbled over the idols of nature one by one, as predicted by Moses. Going to day 3 with vegetation, fertility, as a Canaanite did, worshiping trees, beautiful trees, mountains, and then worshiping the sea, like the Greek, and so forth. So this part of consultation was important for making Adam body. We are part of nature. We are eligible to control it as a king, as part of it. The king cannot be an alien. He must be part of a subject he rule over. So by giving us this gift of making us part of nature, we are eligible to rule over it. And that's what we do, actually. We are not alien here. We can understand. I can look at the fish and understand what the fish think. Because it was part of my own evolution in the uterus, so to speak. Now we move on to another consultation. After the 6 days, we can go on and on, talk about it, but let's move on. The Ramban on the Torah mentioned this consultation, which is part of the Midrash. And it says that ELKM, when he spoke in plural, he talked to the wisdom in his head by which he built nature, the 6th day. What does it mean? Where is this wisdom mentioned in the chapter? The first word at the beginning, it says in English, it says in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. In Hebrew, it says at the head of the event, Bereshit is the head of the event, Elohim created heaven and earth. So there is a head of the event, which means beginning, but it also mentioned a head. So the Rabbi said, look, he was on the 6th day creating Adam. He looked back at the head of the wisdom on his head, by which he created nature, consulted it, and made Adam mind. By this, he make Adam Homo sapiens, smart Adam. Now, we are talking here, before we move on, I want to mention, there are all kinds of wisdom. But here, the Ramban talks specifically about the wisdom by which he created the universe, which means science, what we call science, law of nature. So he turned to that wisdom, the verse 1, and he said to it, so to speak, let us together make Adam. Do you agree? And wisdom agreed. And Elohim consulted it the way a builder consults his plan and made Adam mind accordingly. That's why our mind can decipher or uncover or unravel any mystery of the universe. There's nothing in the universe, take it for granted. There's nothing in the universe can evade man's searching mind. We will develop the mathematics, we'll develop the instrument, and we can discover not only black matter, and quantum physics, but we can discover much more. We can't even imagine what we can. We can. 2 weeks ago, Israel sent to the space a nano satellite. Nano satellite is not bigger than a few millimeters. And a station in Tel Aviv coupled to that satellite in space, which is not bigger than maybe a pea. And to check some prediction from quantum physics. We are there. We already built, humanity already built at least two kind of quantum computer, that our computer now, that our current computer look like child play compared to those powerful quantum computers. So take it for granted that the ELKM by consulted his own wisdom and made our mind. It was a tremendous gift that for the purpose of making us successful in our habitat. We can not only survive, but thrive and develop technology and so on, improving our life. And it's beautiful, but at the same time, because it's so beautiful and powerful, we will tend to err and worship it, thinking that we don't need Elohim anymore. And in fact, that's the idol number one in our society today. It has chased out God in many people's minds. If they think that science can evolve, help to solve everything. So God says here, enjoy science, be fascinated by it, use it to improve your life and be successful, but don't forget me, the one who puts this science in your mind. That's simply what idolatry means here. So, now, why do I call science here the most successful idol? Not only that it currently is science is a big success in our life, but as an idol, it is successful. And by the way, we are going to find out that Noahide has a special message about science and religion to mankind. No other religion, no other group has been charged with such a message more than Noahide. You will see what I mean. Noahide in particular have this special message to send to mankind about this successful idol. And we'll see what I mean. So what do I mean that science is successful? Because it is built on success. Unlike the former idols of nature that people are just fascinated by the sea or by powerful mountain, here we are fascinated by the success of science. Because science by nature is a successful endeavor. What I mean, we take any small successful finding in the lab, in reality, once we find it's working, then we enlarge it and use it as in big time. For instance, when the brother, he just gave a few very famous known examples, how small success turned to be enormous have enormous impact. Like the brother Wright, the one who flew the first airplane. It was a small success. In what year was it? 1895. So they managed to have a small airplane that flew in the air only 12 seconds and landed successfully without crash. A small success. And see what we have today. What kind of enormous fleet of airplane of all kinds we have today coming out from this small event of successful machine that can fly. Heavy machine, not build a balloon or down or anything lighter than air, but heavier than air, and it can still fly. Small success would turn out to be a huge science. So that's how science is working, taking a small success and making it big. Like take the electric bulb, Thomas Alva Edison. A small success, he sat there for a whole night and the electric bulb really shine beautiful light until burn out. Small success, the first bulb. Look what we have today, electricity. Or take the internet. Just give you examples of a small success turned to big. I think it was 1969, they said. The two computers talked to each other first time. One was built in LA, one in Stanford. Each computer occupied a whole house. And they talked to each other. The scientists made them to talk to each other the first time. And the keyword was log in, L-O-G, in, that we use today, log in. That's the message that they had to send to each other, or one to another. Out of that message, only 2 letters passed. Maybe L-O, that's all. A small success. But look what we have today with the internet. So that's the nature of science. That's why we call it, it's a successful idol and successful endeavor that it is successful because it's built on success. So much that it successfully improve our life, eradicated disease, improve our communication. The list is endless. What science has brought to our life. Extended our life, thank goodness. So it's an enormous success. But science, and that can fascinate us. And then we adore science because of that. And we tend to worship it in terms of forgetting who gave it to us. Elohim, God created our mind specifically to use it. So, but not only the success of science is a menace to science, to religion. It's a challenge to religion. There is something else in science that challenges religion, more important than success. And that is a scientific methodology. The scientific methodology seems to be contrary to what religion is. And that poses a threat to religion in many people's minds. What do I mean, scientific methodology? As in short, it's few words. You remember Kant, Immanuel Kant in the 18th century, that the German philosopher who made a revolution by declaring the rule of pure reasoning. I am free, every man should be free to follow his own reasoning, paying no attention to what the authorities said. Maybe a priest or a king or a rabbi or whoever. Use your own, you are free, you are encouraged to have the gut, he said, to stand out on your mind and follow your own pure reasoning. That seems a big challenge to the authority of religion, because religion is based on authority of the Bible, authority of the Holy Book, or rabbis or priests. So use your own pure thinking, pure reasoning. Moreover, number two, principally put, is a pure reasoning critique, in short, which means a very important declaration. It says, do not take for science any theory that cannot be either be proved by our senses. I can touch it or see it, hear it. It must be sensed by must be proven by our senses. It must be measured by our instrument. And it can be tested in a lab repeatedly. And I can form a mathematical equation out of it. And I can develop technology. It must be a real thing that I can measure, touch, test in a lab repeatedly, and develop the technology. God is not like this. I cannot measure God. I cannot test him on a lab. So any theory that in science that incorporate God in it is not a valid theory. It's not a valid scientific theory. And by this, it seems to make a big step out of the old-fashioned science before him. Like the Egyptians, for instance, they didn't separate magic and religion, their religion from science. Even the Greek, certainly not the Babylonian. Everything was God and God or gods, or the God in plural, were always involved in the science. They couldn't imagine, for instance, the star and the moon moving in a certain path or a certain wheel placed by God. So you must mention God in any scientific posture or theory. Now Kant says, no. You take God out, God hypothesis, you remove it from science. As beautiful it can be, as it appealing to your heart or to your mind as it can be. You think you're pious if you do that, but it's not valid when you deal with science. Science should be free of anything that you cannot be measured, touched, experiment in the lab, write mathematical theory, and so on. And by this posture of critique, he completely removed God from the consideration of science, and it seems a big rebellion. Enlightenment and secularization swept all over Europe. Young people who went to the university, the first thing they learn is to discard God from any science. We don't need it anymore. We can solve all our problems with science. And so what is God? It's transcendent. It's beyond science. Now, at first, what is right, what is true here, that Kant was absolutely right. when you deal with scientific issue, use only scientific methodology. But it doesn't mean that you take God out of your life. Because after all, at the end of the day, you think, oh, this how you wonder how my mind is built to understand it, and it's given by God. In fact, Kant himself, with this I will finish Kant, I don't want to dwell on him too much. Kant himself was fascinated so much with our brain ability to write natural law in mathematical formula, the law of mathematics, the law of physics, optics. You can derive them one from the other just by mathematics. But it's fascinating him so much that he talked about our brain are built a priority. So at birth, we are born, he said, with a brain that is made to uncover nature. We have a box of templates in our mind that we can look at nature and write mathematical formula. In fact, he said, it looked to him that our brain actually dictates nature so much. So he was swept away with this idea. And again, we agree with that. Both of us agree with that because simply it was fascinating. It seemed to him he discovered something very weird, that our brain is so geared to understand nature. But according to Moses, this is simply explained by the consultation. The Ramban in the 11th century, 12th century already wrote that ELKM consulted with nature, with the wisdom of nature, and made our brain. So no wonder our brain are built to understand nature and to write mathematics. But at the end of the day, we should enjoy it, use it for our technology, improve our life. But at the end of the day, God says, don't forget me, my child. I planted this science in your head. Okay? Don't worship it and forget me. Don't think for a moment that it will solve all the problem of your life. Science is not God. So scientific method on the surface seem to throw God out of the consideration, but it does not negate the Torah. It does not negate the Torah. In fact, many rabbis were expert in science. They never thought of competition because they know that this wisdom in our head is come from God. The problem with Kant is that he took this notion of critique, pure reasoning critique, and spell it over to morality. In the same token that he said, mankind should don't take anything that you are told, but use your own pure reasoning for science. He said, use your own morality, your own feeling, your own reasoning for morality. By this, in one stroke of a pen, he took God out of morality. For him, what kind of law of morality we should adopt? He put only one condition. I will take upon myself, I'm supposed to take on myself, accept a moral code, only if I believe truly that all mankind should follow the same rule. That it's not unique to me and not to a certain group and so on. It should be equally accepted by all kinds. If I follow that rule, then we know that the moral law will benefit all mankind. That's what he said. So we are afraid to choose any moral law as long as it does not, as everybody will accept it as good for him or her. And it remove morality completely from morality, which is, again, he put it in that box in our head that we are born with, and we have our brain ability planted in us from somehow that we can choose morality that's good for us. That was Kant's premise about morality. It looks nice, but if you take God out of morality, you know what you get? I'll tell you what you get. Adolf Eichmann, the one who instigated Auschwitz, the Holocaust. The man was responsible, literally responsible for millions of people killed, Jews and non-Jews. The arch killer that mankind ever made available. So the same arch killer, when he was at trial in Jerusalem, he said there, you know what he claimed for his defense? He said to the court, what do you mean? I am a good student of Kant. I chose a morality that was accepted by our society. For everyone in our society believed in what I did. Kant made Adolf Eichmann possible. He took God away from it, from morality, made it free to every man to perceive for his own good. And the whole society, indeed, became Eichmann-like, responsible for the millions of people dying, butchered. It's such a cruelty. Because God was not there. So if you follow Kant, you don't need, just look at last 70 years ago, 80 years ago, and you see what will happen if you remove God, morality, if you depend on your own mind. So Kant was in error when he talked about morality. He was not in error when he talked about science. In fact, we clap our hand when he said, take God out of scientific consideration. God is too big to be too holy to be involved in mathematical formula. Take away God. Don't involve. Never consider God as part of your scientific consideration. And we clap our hand. On the contrary, God said, "My boy, use it, but don't use it. Don't forget it's an idol. Don't forget me." Now, we talk about the challenge of science, the challenge to religion from science. The science presents. We're still there. It's the biggest idol of our time. It's not an idol that'll slaughter animal for it, or bow to it, but it's an idol that I will build a temple for it. Yes, I cherish it in many people's mind. It's the most wonderful thing that control our universe. That the origin of our life depends on science. So it's a huge idol, but it has attacked religion from another point of view, from its findings, scientific findings. The scientific finding supposedly seems to contradict the Bible. Ask any student in university that you meet, the first thing you tell you, oh, Bible is nothing to do with reality. Science disproved it, doesn't prove it. So much that scientific science or archaeologists, let's say, has challenged not only the story of the Bible, but even the existence of David or Joshua. They didn't exist. It's all stories fabricated in the 8th century by different people, different authors. Exodus never occurred. All kinds of stories that are composed of nonsense. Creation is not a good story, not a true story. Well, today we know that in fact science has shown us that is the opposite is true. Joshua did exist. David did exist. We found archaeology findings show that David did exist. His palace Solomon's palace was found. The Exodus is described, all the plagues are exactly how it happened. Split of the sea. And of course, creation. We in our class have spent so much time a few months ago talking about History Channel, talking about how History Channel described the history of Earth, stage by stage, and voila. Without their knowledge, they actually approved Moses' account day by day. We show the 6th stage that the History Channel describe in history of Earth, fit like gloves. It's unbelievable how it fits the 6th day that Moses described, including the catastrophe that our Earth passed through in the past. Look, if you want, read again our classes that we spoke about creation. So it's not true that scientific finding must, by definition, dispel or reject the story of the Bible. It's not true. On the contrary, the more we know science, the more we discover, to our surprise, how truthful it is, to the minute. So I can go on and on to give an example. For instance, modern scientists say that even Darwin, that described evolution through random mutation and adaptation, struggle for life, adaptation to the environment and random mutation. It turned out the Darwin theory is childish. You know how much time it takes if you want to explain just one protein molecule by natural selection and by chance of adaptation. It takes 10 in 24 years to explain it by random, which is beyond the age of the universe. It cannot be by chance. And there are many more examples how the Darwin theory that people so love to quote, random selection, everything is evolved by adaptation, random selection. Yes, adaptation, random selection play a part, but it does not explain the enormous evolution throughout the 6 days, the history of Earth. For instance, just to give you one example, the Cambrian era, which is the time, a small segment in history of Earth. only about, let's say 70, about 80, about 100 million years ago. A small segment out of a billion of years of existence of Earth. A small segment on Earth, and suddenly there was an explosion of life on the ocean. Everything we know about eyes, ears, teeth, the fight for life, morality, everything evolved in the water. Within a short period of time, explosion of species that actually are gone by now, most of them. And that all within such a short time in terms of the evolution. So it's not explained by slow mutation and random selection. It's impossible. Some kind of intelligent made it. It must, according to Moses, it was God. In fact, the very fact that Moses even talked about in day 5, and he mentioned the order, fish, bird, crocodile, that's the way evolution worked. Amphibian. So all that, how did he know about it when he grew up in Pharaoh's home? What we're talking about. So the more we know about science, in fact, we know the validity of the Torah. And all the theories of apparently, by many people's mind, I think that science challenges creation. It's not so. Religion is not so. On the contrary, science is a good tool given to us by ELKM to fulfill, to improve our life. But with the challenge, Elohim says, Moses says, in the name of Elohim, it's going to fascinate you. You will be you adore it. You will be impressed by it. But don't forget the one who made it, who gave it to you as a gift. So I go now to the topic that I promised you to talk about. What is the Torah? What is Noah's message to this conflict, so to speak, the role of science in our life? Noahide seems to have a special message. Why? Think about Noah's Ark. You see, it's a wonder. When Elohim decided, heavenly court, let's say, decided to bring on the flood and wipe out mankind and save Noah and animal about it, God could simply make a bubble around them and save them. Or he could tell the grain, don't touch these guys. But instead of a miracle, God turned to Noah and says, you build an ark with a dimension of 300 yards long, 50 wide, 30 height, and a slanted wall with ended up with a peak of 1 by 1 armor at the top. So it had a pyramid shape. There was no deck. There was no front, no back, because it never designed to go anywhere, just to float. And it had 2 huge boards around it, so it saved it from capsizing. The Rabbi said it was a quarter of the Sea of the Galilee dimension. Imagine, quarter of the Sea of Galilee, that big, with the boards and everything. So this was a formula. The length 300, the width 50. So the relationship is 1 to 6. Height 30 is 1/10. And many builders built such an ark, the Talmud says, and it really floated very well. not as big, but they took the same formula and they used smaller boats, and it stayed, all the water never capsized. Because especially when it was filled with animals, so the center of gravity came under the water, so it could wobble but never capsize. And the slanting wall allowed the rainwater to wash off to the sea. It was a wonderful scientific floating machine. Why did God tell him to do that? With the dimension that's described in the Bible. Save yourself with science. Use your mind. So here is the message. Noahide. The ark symbolizes the science, the formula, the mathematics that God gave us to save ourselves from calamity, to improve our life, and to enrich our life, and so on, to eradicate disease, to farm against calamities. We have science, we have Noah's Ark. There are more to talk about Noah's Ark inside and outside it, but the fact I'm here referring just to the fact of the special dimensions. And the fact that God selected a scientifically sound machine to save Noah, rather than perform a big miracle. So if you summarize, so far we talked about 2 consultations. God said in plural, let us make Adam. The Torah doesn't say to whom he's speaking, but the answer is spoke to anyone who was listening, anyone who was mentioned in the chapter, back and forth. So back on the 6th day, he consulted them to make our body. He consulted the wisdom at the beginning by which he created the universe and made our mind accordingly. And there are some more entities that he consulted, important, and to build our mind and body. Special, enormous gift that enriched our life tremendously, made us enjoy our life and push us to move forward, not to sit idle. We talk about them. And those precious gifts, as good as they are, they can serve because they're so fascinating, because they are so important for us. They can allure us to worship them and forget about the Creator. We surrender the life to them rather than to the Creator. If a person subjects himself only to science, he never consider any morality. No, he can build a rocket that destroy. The purpose is to destroy London population completely. You know, Hitler had just a little more time. If scientists would have destroyed London completely, so they can use science for bad things. All right. So next time we're going to move on to the other consultations, just one. And finally, we reach to the 10 Commandments and see how it all play out there. In the 10 Commandments, in number 2, when God tell Israel not to worship idols, you see that almost all of these idols are mentioned there, one way or the other. Any question for me?